Thank you, Creator, for all that is possible and your abundant gifts. Thank you, Nature, for the forces that formed us and shape our reality. Thank you, Science, for the path and the tools we use to explore and understand both nature and the divine. Thank you, friends and fellow humans, for choosing to walk this path. Today's inquiry was sparked by an email asking about the status of an internet domain that I control called platform.org. Platform was a not for profit I co founded in 2013 with a dear friend who died at the tragically young age of 50. Let's continue to unfold our notion of learning to see with a story about my old friend Hank Williams and Platform. Hank was a brilliant, innovative, black tech entrepreneur and genuine visionary who saw well into the future. His passing is a true loss to society. Hank was part of New York's tech community in the 1980s when I met him, starting in hardware development before shifting to software. He created the first successful personal information manager for the Macintosh computer, an integrated contact and calendar program whose simplicity and elegance have yet to be matched. Hank had been funded multiple times as an entrepreneur, so the color of his skin didn't appear to be an issue. His success seemed to affirm the notion that Silicon Valley was a meritocracy where capital followed ideas, not identity. That perception changed for Hank when he spent a summer in the Valley as part of an incubator that brought together 8 black tech entrepreneurs to pitch potential investors. For the entire time he was there, Hank saw no black faces other than those in the house with him. More troubling still was seeing one of the housemates stopped by police for no reason other than the obvious one. To escape the sometimes claustrophobic shared home environment, this fellow would sit at a local coffee shop and work on his laptop. One day he was stopped by police simply while walking back to the house, which somehow was suspicious behavior. The incident, as well as Hank's entire time in the valley, was documented by a news crew. CNN produced a series titled Black in America. This episode, The New Promised Land, Silicon Valley, featured the group. At the time, less than 1% of funded companies had black founders. What disturbed Hank about the lack of diversity in tech was how it diminished entrepreneurship overall, since a large portion of the population wasn't participating. His concern wasn't at a group level, but at a societal one. He felt that if we were to thrive as a nation, we'd need to increase innovation and own the technology of the future. He understood 2 important things: that genius appears across all populations, and that different minds solve the same problem in different ways. That made his focus species wide. At the societal level, Hank understood that a Latina girl living adjacent to a boys' private boarding school on New York's Upper East Side experiences a different world than the students within. Her way of seeing produces different approaches to problem solving, yet her experience is not taught within that institution. At the same time, she doesn't see people like herself welcomed into the variety of careers readily available to those graduates. The same environment simultaneously creates different challenges and differing understandings. The gap between demands diverse minds for problem solving and innovation. So there we were in 2013 with Hank believing that we were in an all minds on deck moment as a nation, yet seeing this large chunk of minds missing from the innovation economy, which is the intersection of technology with new entrepreneurship. Platform's mission was simple: to increase the participation of blacks, Latinos, and women in this crucial sector. To achieve it offered a challenge, especially since the tech ecosystem didn't seem to notice that there was a problem. Here again, the greater challenge is how to get people to see the thing hidden in plain sight. For would-be entrepreneurs of color, multiple barriers exist. Hank knew our first task would be to close the visibility gap. Many children of color don't consider a wide variety of science, tech, and entrepreneurial goals because they generally don't see people who look like them in those fields. Minds that would add value are disinclined before they begin. Now, I don't think that religion is a place for politics, so it's important to be mindful that many things exist simultaneously in multiple systems. There are issues addressed concurrently by sociology, politics, and religion whose conclusions can be at odds with each other. Many have a root in biology, which adds yet a different dimension. We have previously discussed the metaphor frame aspect of word prisons and must be mindful that when you shift to a different system, new information becomes available while some can be shifted out of view. Our system is religion rooted in science. Diversity is a recurring structural feature of the creation across every scale we've learned to examine. The number of galaxies in the observable universe is at least 100 billion and could be as many as 2 trillion. Here on Earth, there are over 1,700,000 known species. There are over 66,000 vertebrate animals, which includes mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish. There are over 31,000 types of mushrooms. Variety isn't excess. It's a relentless feature of evolutionary strategy used to solve problems with great success. So much so that there are 268,000 species of flowering plants. Nature, or evolution, or the Creator, take your preferred lens, didn't settle for just one expression when the idea of flowering plants arose. The orchid, which belongs to one of the largest flowering plant families, is a highly adaptable plant living in diverse habitats on every continent except Antarctica. There are roughly 28,000 different orchid species, each solving the same fundamental problem of survival through an abundance of different strategies. Humans demonstrate remarkable diversity as well. The notion of diversity, however, has been imprisoned recently in a political cage, along with equity and inclusion, and weaponized as a tool to reduce diversity. Platform's mission of diverse inclusion, seen as an invitation that would solve societal challenges and generate wealth, has been erased by a rebranding of diversity as a negative. What I find personally heartbreaking is seeing how a sociological initiative called DEI has been turned against both society and the underlying structure of creation. The adaptability that applies to the success of orchids, an underlying impulse to solve problems across a wide array of situations, is no less applicable to human flourishing. Variety is possibility. Diversity brings success. The opposite is the monoculture, the cultivation of a single variety, a single approach, a single approved way of seeing. Monoculture is both epistemologically and biologically impoverished. That word, epistemological, refers to the method's validity and scope of understanding itself. In both realms, the biological and the intellectual, monoculture is drained of possibility. Any push towards monoculture runs counter to nature's underlying imperative to push towards possibility. Monoculture imposes danger. One of history's more vivid examples was the Irish potato famine of 1845 that lasted for 7 years and saw approximately 1 million people die and another million flee. Irish agriculture had shifted to a near total dependence on a single potato variety. When a fungus-like microorganism infected that crop, there was no genetic diversity to resist it. The Andes, where the potato originated, had hundreds of varieties, offering a biological library of adaptive possibility. The Irish monoculture, built for efficiency, had unknowingly traded away resilience and paid a tragic price. A similar calamity surfaced in the Soviet Union from the 1930s to the 1960s under Joseph Stalin. Lysenkoism, named for Trofim Lysenko, was a pseudoscientific political campaign against genetics and science-based agriculture. Thousands of biologists were dismissed, imprisoned, or executed in the push to suppress scientific opponents of Lysenko, who claimed to have developed agricultural techniques that could radically increase crop yields. It wasn't true. Soviet genetics research was effectively destroyed, and other biological disciplines were hindered. Soviet agricultural science operated in an enforced monoculture of approved thought for nearly 30 years. The result? Crop yields collapsed, contributing to famines that killed millions, while the rest of the world advanced a field the Soviets had effectively deleted from their intellectual ecosystem. Their intellectual monoculture produced famine. Meanwhile, the Western system of intellectual curiosity produced a Nobel laureate and a revolution in biology. Monocultures of knowledge, like monocultures of species, are impoverished in ways we only fully understand after loss. Our path towards the divine requires an embrace of the creation in its entirety. We are finite beings living in a nearly infinite universe, contemplating the ultimate questions. We need everyone. Temple Grandin offers an important illustration of diverse thinking. Her TED Talk entitled "The World Needs Diverse Minds" was watched over 7 million times. Grandin, diagnosed with autism, thinks entirely in pictures, which is a form of cognition known as extreme object visualization. It allows her to see things and solve problems that, quote, neurotypical brains more often miss. People think in different modes. Some visually, some in mathematical patterns, and some with words. That capacity to see what others miss was the key for Hank. He understood the value of having innovators and entrepreneurs who see with different eyes. The tech industry regularly talks about seeing outside the box, never acknowledging that it is not a neutral container. It was built to suit a specific set of experiences and expectations, with edges that are invisible to those who have never stood outside it. Grandin didn't think outside the box. She never inhabited it, which is precisely why she could see what those inside couldn't. Grandin's distinctive perceptual lens allowed her to see solutions an entire industry had overlooked for decades. An ethologist and proponent of the humane treatment of animals, Grandin designed cattle handling facilities that were more compassionate, more efficient, and have been implemented in roughly half of the facilities in North America. One individual with the right mind was able to improve an entire industry that generates tens of billions of dollars annually. People like Grandin too often get overlooked or dismissed. The world needs visual thinkers, pattern thinkers, verbal thinkers, people on the autism spectrum, and all manner of perception. It also needs cultural differences as well as experiential ones. Just as many hands make light work, many minds solve great problems. We seek the divine and need as many minds as possible. Imagine what is lost when we exclude a swath of unique individuals. There is a related question that flows from this inquiry. Not what we lose when a mind is excluded, but what happens when a truth is offered before the world is prepared to receive it. That is a different sermon for another time, but consider the Madagascar periwinkle, a common roadside plant used for generations in folk medicine across multiple cultures, yet overlooked by formal science until it was investigated in the 1950s. What they found transformed childhood leukemia survival from roughly 10% to over 90. We found that one. What else remains undiscovered? Not in rainforests or coral reefs, but in classrooms, institutions, or societies that looked at an individual and saw only deficit rather than gift. Martha Graham urged us to keep the channel open, to embrace and express our distinctiveness, since there will only ever be one of us. Remember that society is a byproduct of our collective acts of creation. We each take our experience of the moment, process it through our creative capacity, and envision possibility. This process gives rise to entrepreneurs, among other things, and Hank understood the importance of establishing and supporting a pathway. The selective pressures that fuel evolution over time are external forces that challenge a species for ongoing success. Adapt or Die makes a clear case for exploring diversity, yet its underlying energy is one that is reactive or defensive. The opposite polarity is expansive and curious. That urge has allowed modern humans to develop a remarkable capacity to influence our evolutionary path through cooperation, technology, and acts of deliberate will. It is only by inviting all that we, the human family, will find our way to the divine. Here's a final image to carry with you. You know your favorite song. You would recognize it sung badly at karaoke, played as a string quartet, remixed with a dance beat, or performed in a language you don't speak. The form can change endlessly, yet its central truth, the thing that makes it that song, persists through every variation. Your brain holds the intention as preeminent to any particular expression of it. It is unmistakable, irrespective of form. Let our shared humanity be that song. Diverse inclusion is an invitation to all, whereas DEI became an insult of preemptive dismissal that discredits merit on the basis of visual cues. Our pursuit of a creator that exceeds all human conception requires every consciousness, each a unique window into the creation. No object is fully illuminated by light from only one direction. Hank understood this, and it applies equally to entrepreneurship and the divine. Every excluded mind is not just a loss, it is a gap in the instrumentation, a lens we choose not to use, a facet of the diamond that was never turned toward the light. Diverse inclusion, all minds on deck, is the only instrumentation adequate to our task. A single lens, however excellent, has a fixed position and fixed blind spots. The solution to a blind spot is never a better lens pointed in the same direction. It is another lens, positioned differently. And another. And another. Look carefully this week at the variety of minds with whom you intersect, remembering that those individuals are different perceptual instruments. Try to notice if you discount or dismiss an idea because of its source rather than its content. As part of your practice, try to see the divine spark that lives within each person and then become curious about what they perceive that you don't. Thank you for being here, my friends, and for sharing the gift of today with all that it entails. Honor the Creator, honor the creation.